Hello and welcome to the Animation Communication podcast, your source for discussion about animation, film, fandom, and more. So please join your host, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, or KP, and Lauren Kizich, the Abbey Roadie, for today's discussion. If you like what you hear, please remember to support by giving a like, a follow, as well as subscribing to the main I Love Kim Possible a Lot channel on YouTube. Spread the word and keep being a part of a great community. This episode contains heavy adult language and is not appropriate for young children. Can't.
Hi everyone, welcome to this week's episode of Animation Communication. We did not forget about you. Life happens, and this is like, not my hugest priority in life right now to do the podcast.
And it's okay. I mean, we're all in busy points in our lives right now. A lot of things have picked up for a lot of things, and and then on top of that, it's a holiday week when we're recording, which is the whole purpose of our episode this time.
Yay, welcome to the learning episode. But if you're complaining about not having enough podcasts, then I bet good money you haven't listened to all of them. We're almost at 50 now. Like, you haven't listened to all 50.
We've got several hours of material.
That's
go listen.
What is that? Math, 47 times, or 45-ish times 2 at least. That's a lot of hours, so.
Yeah.
Hope you like the sound of my voice.
And some will go over 2 hours, so, or a small handful go over 2 hours. So
yeah,
you've got plenty of material.
What do you have, friends or something? Okay. So, as you probably been able to tell by how we're delivering these lines for this episode, we do not have a guest. I guess I am the guest technically. We are all guests in our own special way, but it's like the Hanukkah episode. If you guys listen to that, if you did it, then you can go do that and come back or whatever. And I probably will be cursing a little bit, so there's a heads up. So I don't really give a fuck tonight. But
no, it's I don't give a Easter.
I don't give a Jesus. And then, but I think these ones are funner anyway because we don't have when we don't know the guest too, and we're just like, okay, we're gonna spend like 2.5 hours with this industry person that maybe could get us a job someday. Like, I hope we don't piss them off. But now we're just like, hey, no rules. Let's walk on the ceiling. It's fine.
Dancing on the ceiling.
Okay, so we have a couple stories.
Anyway.
Yeah, we have a couple stories that it's pretty quiet. The world is slowly healing from COVID, so please get vaccinated if you haven't yet. I don't think you need me to tell you that, though. I'm sure everyone's just like...
Yeah, and of course it does depend on your region, on your country, on your state, whoever's opening up. Looking at you, California, being late to the party.
Have you gotten any of your shots yet, Lauren?
I won't be able... my age group won't be able to get it until, like, April 16th. So, I mean, I still have a little, about a week and a half until that point.
I'm already done, so, like, that's hilarious.
Yeah, see, and the thing is you also did it and you're not in California.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, yes, we Californians have been very, very slow to get our stuff.
There's a reason I did not stay in California for this, like hell on earth 2020, so,
Yeah.
And like half of 2021. Anyway. Okay, I guess you can do the first story, and then I'll do the second story, because it is a thing that I will be excited to talk about, so.
Yeah, so anyway, our first story it has to do with a trailer that dropped this week as of recording this, and it is the trailer for the long-awaited The Mitchells vs. the Machines, which is by Sony Animation, it's also directed by Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who famously did the Lego Movie, Clone High, basically, I want to say, they've actually done quite a bit of stuff. Oh, yeah, Spider-Verse.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest one. One time.
Well, anyway, I mean, they've done, and it's funny because they keep dipping their toes back into animation over and over again for, like, animated features and stuff, so... but anyway, the trailer dropped for that, and that's actually a pretty big deal that they got to run with that title, because that was their working title until they had to change it when I guess when it was supposed to have a theatrical release. They wanted to have the name be, I think it was called Reconnected? No, it was called Connected.
That's stupid.
Which is not as catchy. Yeah, and so meanwhile, Netflix was like, hey, if you want, we can distribute you guys and you can keep your title. I know that's pretty much like a very, very bare bones explanation as to what happened there, but it is because of the partnership with Netflix, being able to distribute on that platform, that is part of the deal, that they get to keep the original working title of the movie, which is awesome. And and the trailer looks really fun. Animation looks really cool too, because it's what's great about Sony is the very stylized animation that they have to make it look 2D translated to 3D.
Mm-hmm.
And so but this one's, I like that they don't give away too much, other than, yes, it's a movie about a family surviving basically an AI/robot apocalypse where technology has taken over the world and then is holding the human populace hostage, and it's up to this one family to be able to stop them. And it's a family that has to learn how to get along in order to save the world. So it's the writing, I mean, already sounds really good. I don't want to give too much away. Basically, just go see the trailer. It's out there, up on YouTube or on Twitter, whatever your social media platform is that you watched it on, probably. But it looks. It comes out on April 30th too, by the way. So right around the corner.
Yeah, I imagine the majority of people have Netflix at this point. I don't know what you're doing if you don't have Netflix, or at least you're stealing it from someone. The only other thing I was going to add is, one time, I think it was Miller. So I did my Clone High video maybe shortly after. Probably like a month and a half after the reboot got announced, and then around the time that the JFK meme was trending, and I didn't do that on purpose. It kind of just worked out that way. So, someone was like, let's put him in the thumbnail. I'm like, that sounds like a good way to market. And it did like okay for 2020 KP numbers. But anyway, Miller retweeted me, and I was just, that's my biggest accomplishment. It's like, one time I got retweeted by some guy who won an Oscar. So look at me, Mom.
Yeah.
Okay. That's you still there, Lauren?
And then you got
okay.
yeah. You and then you have your headline.
Oh, okay. So this isn't like any big news, but like it's important to me. It's important to me, and that's all that matters. It's my podcast, so fuck you. Anyway, no, not really, but anyway, so as if you have listened to the podcast before, I am a fan of how Disney is marketing themselves via the mobile game extensions. So the ones I've talked about in the past is Disney Sorcerer's Arena, which is a 3D poly-based game thing, which is probably better than the other one I'm going to talk about. But yeah, so it's one of those like paid it out, like, free play. You can spend money on it if you want to, but no one ever does unless you're like a loser. I'm not dropping $100 in a mobile game. I'm sorry. Like, I just can't. I just like, no. So I play that one. And then the other one I play is Disney Heroes, which is 2D based. And again, I made this point the last time I talked about it, is I was only going to stick with Sorcerer's Arena because Disney Heroes is kind of messy and it's not as fun to play as Sorcerer's Arena because it's not a strategy based. You just kind of collect the characters and then you like have them fight and upgrade them or whatever. But the big advantage with Disney Heroes is there's like storylines in the game, and they try to kind of interconnect it, which the other one, the Sorcerer game does not do. They just don't care. But you can tell that one is based on the other. And there's a third game coming out where it's like, I'm kind of curious to see what will happen, where it's like AU based characters, where like what happens if like Belle was a sorcerer or whatever, and she like had a book of spells or whatever, and she has this outfit. So they have a lot of like what ifs, and then they like combine them, and I'm just like, that's a good idea. So anyway,
What if Belle was a witch? Wait a minute, isn't that just the 2017 Beauty and the Beast because Emma Watson?
okay. But as I've talked about before, Disney Heroes is not a little bit, it's much better at incorporating and trying to reactivate older properties comparatively to Sorcerer's Arena. Like, we had the Black Cauldron Horn King guy in Sorcerer's Arena, but and then Disney Heroes has been around longer, so it has the advantage. Like, I think like last month they added the Rocketeer, which I still haven't seen that movie, but I've heard it's a good movie. So they've added the Rocketeer. They added they have like Kita. They have 3 Treasure Planet characters, which, like, that's all I care about. I still have not locked John Silver yet because he's not really an option right now, but I am trying to do my best. Anyway, well, okay, now let's get to the actual story. Before there's the setup. So the actual story is last weekend. The game was like, you need to download because we have a new character, and I'm just like, I don't want to do that, but I'll do it, whatever. So I re-downloaded the game, and then I opened the game, and I was like, wait a minute. So, the new character that they added, which I was screaming about, they added Draken to the game as a fightable character, and I was like,
yeah.
I'm a very happy bean. So I was just like,
It's like there's a new character. I don't care. Sees Draken. Now I care.
Now I care a lot because like like they were like talking about all the patch notes and shit like that, and Draken was one of Draken's. If you play the game, they have like 4 or 5 basic moves, and they have avatars for each of the moves. So one of the Draken avatars was in the patch notes, and I'm just like, wait a minute. I know who that is. So, and luckily for me, usually the newer characters are harder to unlock, but I am in a club where, basically this is congruent between both the games, but, if you join a club, you can fight other clubs, and then you get rewards if you win, and the key is just to join a big club and not do anything, and then just get the rewards automatically. So that's what I do, because I'm a team player, I don't know. So I did that, and as I was opening the game, they were just like, we were getting the rewards, and one of them was like, do you want Dr. Draken clips or chips, or do you want, like, another character? And I'm just like, is that even a question in the game? So I was able to unlock Draken relatively easily compared to, like, Jim, who took me, like, a couple weeks to unlock once he was added to the game. And that's all I've been playing. And so, Lauren, I didn't tell you this, but you will get a kick out of this. So, all of the people, all of them have, like, friends. So when they're added, usually there's 2 friends that they already have, and then the, like, backup characters you have 2 friend spots, essentially. And so characters that were added relatively later maybe will get, like, like, if Kim's added, Kim has 2 friends, and then she might get added to another person's friend list that doesn't have their friend list full or whatever. So anyway, so Draken's friends are Kim, and what's the name of the duck that is in DuckTales? Like, that's the robot duck, Lauren?
You mean Gizmo Duck?
Yeah, Gizmo Duck.
Oh.
So, I guess, because robot thing. So, but guess who's backlogged as one of Draken's friends?
Who?
You will never guess.
No, genuinely tell me. If it's somebody, I'll never guess.
No, you will. I mean, it's one of your characters that you like, but
is it Cusco?
Close.
Kronk?
Yeah, it's Krunk.
He keeps aligning himself with all these bad guys, and he's not a bad guy.
Well, he's like a henchman, so I think that's what they were thinking. Is just
he's a henchman with good intentions. Yeah. He doesn't mean to hurt anybody. He's in the wrong line of work.
Yeah, so I got a kick out of that, and I forgot to screenshot it because I was gonna be like, if any, like, how Lauren and I became friends, and like Trunk and Draken are now friends. So I forgot what their dialogue is about.
Is Cusco in there, or is it just Kronk?
Kronk and Yzma are in there. That's it so far.
Okay. They gotta eventually add Cusco. I mean, come on, the guy, like, literally just tries to kick and punch and everything. Like he tries to use disco moves.
I'm sure they will. And the good thing about Disney Heroes is like they don't have to be fighting inclined to be added to the game. Like they have characters like Belle, and like even like Draken's face, like at a face level, is not a traditionally fighting character. That's why he has Shigo. So I was kind of surprised they added him first and not Shigo, but I guess they wanted to do like heroes and like their arch nemesis or whatever first, and I imagine Shigo and maybe Ron will be like down the line eventually, but then like for like anniversaries they add like specific anniversary themed characters too, which
that makes sense.
So like for Sorcerer's Arena, they added today for April Fools, they added like the avatars are called tokens or whatever, and they added a Cloplin token for April Fools. So I was just like, hey, I recognize that thing. So, you usually have to wait for like an anniversary, but they kind of get to what the void of the internet is screaming first. But yeah, so I imagine they'll add Cusco. The next character they're adding for next month is Demona, and they already have Goliath, so, which is good.
They're trying to hit up the Disney afternoons. And
they have Darkwing Duck
Disney
already,
groups.
and they have Negaduck, and they have, like, one of the other Darkwing Duck villains. I don't know DuckTales lore that well. I'm sorry, Internet. I've watched I watched, like, a little bit of season 1 of the 2017 DuckTales, but I haven't caught up yet, which is really bad for me to say because one of my trips to LA, I got to tour the DTV studio when they were making DuckTales, and people are just like, you plebeian, you shouldn't deserve that, and I'm just like, I'm sorry. And they were actually setting up for Amphibia too, because there's like, they deem the offices around like the show, and like I saw frog stuff, and I'm like, what's this frog show that they're like. But it was just in the process of, like, starting to clean out the offices and add new people in. Anyway, so that's what the frog show was. Let's see. And my other favorite thing about it is they have made Draken an anti-hero, which is I'm very, 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 very happy about, because I think that's where he would go canonically anyway after the series. So, like, Gizmo Duck straight up asks Draken if he's a bad guy, and Draken's like, we have our moments, but So I'm like, yeah, they're doing the things. The only thing I was kind of surprised about is they didn't have Draken's flower powers, like viney thingies, as a fightable defense, which I think they were added to.
Maybe you build up to that.
No, it's not. It's not an option. Maybe they'll add it in an update or something like that. But
well, that's what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I mean. They'll eventually add it as something that you can earn up to that power or something.
Yeah. So my guess is not a lot of like casual people would understand that because it was only in the last episode. But he's got the Attitudinator as his weapon, and he's got little nanotech bombs from Tick Tick Tick, and he's got a laugh. His thing is his evil laugh, which is actual like a defense. But
kind of surprised he doesn't have Doofenshmirtz as a
they don't
partner.
have any Phineas and Ferb characters yet, which is weird. But again,
get on it if they're not already.
I mean, I'm not complaining. There's plenty of Phineas and Ferb like stuff, and I'm like, I'm like just give me some Kim Possible thing that's not the movie anymore. And so they're just like, how about this? And I'm just like, hey, I'll take it. So I'm curious to see where they go, and I tweeted at the devs if like when you add Shigo, guys, please add shippy dialogue. That's all I want. It's canon. That's all I want. So but again, same principle. Not a lot of people know that that's canon because it was only in the last episode, and people and casuals are just like, ew, Draken and Shigo, like, I don't want to think about that. That's gross. And I'm like, deal with it. It's canon. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, get over it.
Get over it. They're fucking get over it. Anyway, on that note, let's talk about Passover.
Yeah, let's get down to the brass tacks.
Okay, so I'm gonna teach you guys a little bit about the the Passover stuff. So we celebrate Passover.
And to preface, guys, I know more about Passover than I did about Hanukkah.
I would hope most
but I will
people
still
do.
Sit back and let. Well, it's funny because it just seems that there's more connected here around this time of the holidays of Easter and Passover, obviously. Then it seems that like Christmas and Hanukkah have that separation. So anyway, yeah. Anyway,
it's about rebirth.
I'll let you take it from here.
in shit. Anyway, so if you don't know what the hell I'm talking about, so we're gonna learn about the Jewish holiday Passover, or Pesach, which is what it is called in Hebrew. And for a refresher, I grew up Jewish, Reformed. Unfortunately, I've been confirmed and bat mitzvahed and the whole thing. So I have all this Jewish knowledge that I don't really care to use anymore, but it just in my brain, it just sits there, and sometimes it gets to come out.
Might as well use it to educate people.
Yeah, sometimes it comes out of my brain, but then I'm pretty secular and agnostic in nature, so it's a good cultural background, but I'm kind of like, that's our whole thing, is talking about how stories impact people, and I feel like religion is kind of in the same boat, even though the only difference is people think religion really happened, and then fandoms are just like, oh, someone made it up. It's different, but like I think the passion is similar. Anyway, so Passover. So basically, this was near the end of the Exodus book in the Old Testament. If you're playing at home, essentially, we celebrate the fact that there's this guy named Moses, and he frees the Jews from Egypt. Now, there's a couple of myths that I want to get right off the bat and disprove. Slaves did not build the pyramids. The pyramids were already there before the Jews were in Egypt, from my understanding. So that was not a thing. It's easier to depict the Jews building the pyramids because the iconography is easier. It's like, oh, what's in Egypt? Pyramids. Like, what can they build?
Yeah.
The pyramids. So there's hints in Prince of Egypt, which we'll get to in a little bit, but there's hints in Prince of Egypt that they're working on the Sphinx. And similar to Aladdin, there's a scene where Ramesses and Moses are like running around with the horses, and then they knock the nose off. So that's how the nose came off. Whatever. It's fine. It's cute enough. No one's hurt. So, and the other thing,
not dismissing the actual thing that happened in history of what really happened in the nose, which actually is still kind of funny when I think about it. Wasn't it like Napoleon blew it off with a cannonball or something?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
Napoleon fucked up a lot of shit
something
when
like
he was
that.
in Egypt. He like stole mummies, and like he was just the worst. Like, I'm sure historians hate Napoleon for all the bad things he did to all the mummies in Egypt. Makes everyone's life harder.
Yeah.
God damn it, Napoleon. Anyway. We're learning a lot about history this week because if you watch the main channel, we released an Anastasia video, and we talked.
Which was excellent, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm not saying that out of bias. It was genuinely like really thorough, and I'm glad you guys connected it back to Pocahontas and talking about historical accuracy and the difference between what's going to be historically accurate and what is basically just glorified fan fiction.
Yeah.
And going into historical AU.
It's all historical. Yeah. So there's the plug.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go. Please go watch it, guys, if you haven't yet. It's really good, and I'm not saying that out of bias.
It's not because she's my friend.
Don't
worry, Lauren.
I'm literally saying it because it's really
down
thorough.
That I have pointing at my computer because that's how that works. Anyway, so yeah, so that like a lot of the comments were like, I didn't expect you to know about history, and I'm just like, well, I mean, a lot of 90s people like the Anastasia movie, and it's still good. The takeaway is it's still good. It's much better than Pocahontas, and I think that's why people have a harder time, finding where to place it and how Disney will what Disney will do with it if it does something with it eventually.
Yeah.
But
I think it's also because with Anastasia, at the time of its production, there was a lot more in question and a lot more unknown about what happened versus Pocahontas, which stuff was already known, and
they just didn't
they
care. It's fine.
and they just did it anyway. And so yeah, I mean that's the difference between the two productions. Again, yeah, we didn't know what happened to Anastasia in real life until after the movie was already done and released. So yeah, so it was all about intrigue, and then plus because of the media that preceded it, all about Anastasia going missing and stuff like that. It was just like, yeah, it was already rooted. So it was just another means of telling the story again, and kind of just going off the fantasy of what happened and if she survived. It's not the movie's fault for existing and for being what it was. It's like at the time nobody knew, and then they found out, and then it's like, whoops.
And I say this in the video, but I imagine the hype around, like, you know, like they find the rest of the bodies, and you know, there's a female missing, and they're just like, what? So like that does not help unhype your mystery. It makes it much worse. Basically, yeah, go watch the video. TLDR is it's complicated. But anyway, back to Passover. So the other misconception, which I did look up because I am curious, and you know, as someone who genuinely like understands how people find solace in religion, but doesn't you know, I don't have that luxury myself because it's, you know, I've had a very bittersweet relationship with religion in general my whole life. It's probably likely that the number of Jews that exited Egypt, if they did it all, because, you know, historically they can't really find any references to Moses, and like how history people like deal with that is they, you know, they try to see if like any historical, like, are there any pharaohs talking about Moses or this big exodus of the slaves, or and the TLDR is not really, there's some like something that could be interpreted as a mention, I think, by Akhenaten, one of, like, I cannot pronounce, apologies to all of the Egyptians out there, but there's a slight mention that could be like seen as a, you know, monotheistic light, but you know, there's not really a lot. So if Moses' story did happen, go ahead.
I was gonna say there was also some. I remember even a documentary a while back when they were trying to decipher what happened and trying to find all the evidence of the Exodus. And I do remember that they said, you know, a lot of things could have been mixed up in translation in terms of locations and stuff too. Because when they say the parting of the Red Sea, like, they may have also meant, because they're saying, oh, well, if you want to be logical about it, the parting of a Red Sea didn't happen like it says in the Bible or how it's depicted in the films to be, right? But they said it might also be because of its proximity. It might have been the Reed Sea that they crossed, which is a much more shallow body of water. And so at low tide, it would have been possible for people to cross. So they were like trying to piece together all these things within proximity and with whatever evidence they could find and what they had and were piecing together from old manuscripts. And yeah, it was just like you said, it's piecing together things.
But yeah, the other takeaway is most historians believe the Bible was not written by the same person, like throughout, obviously, written by several different people over the course of time, and so that makes it messy to figure out. It's basically like if your favorite show is written by different writers and you have to kind of like what I do all the time is take what's canon and decipher it in a way that makes sense, you know, chronologically. So
yeah,
it gets is messy. So anyway, if the Exodus did happen at all, it's probably around like 20,000 men. So that's probably like, you know, 30 to 35,000 people with like women and children included. It's not the millions of people that you see in the Ten Commandments and the Prince of Egypt. Let me talk about those real quick. So I'll talk about Prince of Egypt again. longer because that's one of my favorite movies ever. Not because I'm Jewish, just because it's a good movie. But
there are a lot of people, no matter their faith, that love the movie because of just how powerful the message is, and
it's
and
like
just how
two of
inspiring
my
the
favorite
story
movies
is.
that ever exist have religious undertones in them, and I do not pick those. The other one being Hunchback, obviously. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so for the first movie, I'll just mention briefly. So, The Ten Commandments is the movie that came before Prince of Egypt that Steven Spielberg based his pitch around, which is a live action, like old school Hollywood take on, the Exodus story, and they go throughout Moses' life. So I think they go all the way till he dies, and it's like really long, and I think it's a little boring. But it's also technically closer to the Prince of Egypt than the Prince of Egypt. The Prince of Egypt took artistic liberties a little bit more, but I think for the better. But I will talk about that in a little. Let me get through the core story, and then we can talk about Prince of Egypt, and then we can have Lauren ask questions that she might have. So the core story is, I said this last year at the Seder, and now it's a running joke, and my dad got mad at me because I was like, anything from my childhood, so anything religious or anything, like, I always have nightmares that I'm like, still stuck in high school, even though, like, I'm in my late 20s at this point, and I just can't get out of high school. So that tells you a lot about, like, how I've developed myself with my YouTube-ness, essentially. But sometimes I get triggered around Passover, and so I was not in the mood to tell the story, but my dad's like, tell the story, and I'm just like, everyone knows the story, and he's like, tell it anyway, because it was just the family that year because of COVID. And I was like, one time when Pharaoh was a douchebag, and then my dad got really mad, and everyone else laughed. So now they were just like, now this year they were just like, tell it how you did last year. My dad's like, no. So, but I'm not wrong. Anyway,
I was like, yeah, what he did was bad, so
okay,
yeah,
so
we're not wrong.
I'm gonna go by Prince of Egypt names because it's just easier on my brain.
It's easier for the general public that has, for at least I'm sure for the majority of our viewers,
one time
listeners,
Patrick
I should say,
Stewart
they have seen it.
Was an Egyptian pharaoh.
Oh, I was gonna say you could say the Pharaoh, and then you could say Ramses, and you could say Moses. I was gonna say, I don't know how many people are gonna associate with Patrick Stewart and Val Kilmer and Ray Fiennes unless they go, okay, so Voldemort and
Voldemort sings in this movie. Anyway, so Patrick Stewart's character, they named him Seti, and then Ramses' son is named Seti too, because of things I will explain. But anyway, so Pharaoh is threatened by the male heirs, the males that the Jews are producing, because he's afraid that they will overthrow him. So he makes this whole self-fulfilling prophecy thing where he steals all of them. No, he doesn't steal. He takes them away from mothers that are birthing new boys. This was not a grandfathered clause. So Moses' brother Aaron was fine. And then if you don't know how the Jews got there, then look up the Joseph story, because that's how they got there. I don't feel like explaining that one right now either. But anyway, so essentially Moses' mother is just like, nah, dog. So she makes a basket, puts the baby in the basket. It flows down a river, probably not as dramatically as it happened in the movie. The princess gets it, not the queen. But the princess gets it. Moses' mother, Yocheved, is the wet nurse for Moses. Moses grows up in the palace, and then he finds out he's a Jew. I forgot why. I know the movie version, but I'm not sure if the movie version is the correct way. I don't remember how.
It is more dramatic.
Yeah, so he finds out he's a Jew. He kind of goes crazy. And he's like, what do I do now? He accidentally kills a dude. That's, I guess, canon or whatever.
Which does happen in the movie, so there
yeah,
you
he
go.
does. He does kill a guy, and then he runs away to the desert. And then he meets Jethro and Jethro's tribe with Zipporah. who I don't think was established before this, but in the movie she is, obviously for character reasons. Anyway, so he runs away in the desert. He meets Zipporah. He marries Zipporah. He becomes a shepherd. Also, the Prince of Egypt soundtrack is banging. Like, it's always been one of my favorite soundtracks. Anyway, so then maybe like 5 to 10 years later, there's the burning bush thing. So he finds a burning bush that talks to him, and is like, "You need to free my people, Moses." And Moses is like, "I'm not the best at the things." And God's like, "No, do it anyway." And Moses is like, "All right." So what was in the movie is Moses was not a good speaker, and he stuttered like I do sometimes when I'm talking. So, damn it! Now I'm thinking about it. Anyway,
isn't that when that's why he had Aaron go
yeah,
with him?
Aaron was his spokesperson. So, and then it's implied in the movie that then the plagues start. So, but it's implied in the movie that the magicians are faking the plagues, replicating the plagues. But we're not really sure what happened. But Pharaoh's magicians were able to replicate the plagues Moses was doing. So the first thing is he's made a snake out of his staff, and then the plagues eventually started. So I don't want to name all the plagues, but there's a lot. So there's the blood and the Nile and the frogs and the darkness.
Yeah, the rivers turn to blood. There's the frogs, the locusts, the darkness, the fiery hailstorm, the
cattle,
the boils, the slaughtering of their livestock, pretty much. Or I shouldn't say slaughtering. It's just they killed off the plague killed off the livestock. So basically, it was and the locusts ate up all their grains, their other sources of food. It was basically all these things trying to wipe out the Egyptians or bring them to their knees with every plague, and every time it passed over the Hebrew people, so they were not affected, and that is according to the text as well.
Yeah,
and every time
that's why it's called Passover. Well, more specifically, it's called Passover.
The last plague. We'll get to the last plague now.
Yeah, I don't I always get confused if lice and locusts are the same plague or not, so that's where my brain stops. Like, I just know the plague song.
Locusts. Yeah, locusts and flies are. I mean, I think it was just locusts, but I don't know if translations led to flies in some degree, but I do know locusts.
Anyway, it was not fun, essentially.
It was a bad time for Egypt.
It was a bad time, It's like we can relate, but we're not as bad. We're not like running out of food, thank God, hopefully. We're just running out of money. Anyway,
like pretty much Egypt went through a whole 2020 situation.
That's how we're gonna make it relatable. #relatable. There you go. I feel like a bad rap. I was just like, this is how it's relatable to you millennials because you understand what plagues are like because we're dealing with one. Anyway, so why specifically it's called Passover is God instructed the Hebrews kill a lamb and take the blood and paint it over their doors, so the plague of the death of the firstborn passes them. Which I think, the angel should know if they're Hebrews or not. Like, they should have a list. They shouldn't need that. Anyway, there's me trying to understand plot holes, but that was the last straw because Pharaoh was just done at that point. And the scene in the Prince of Egypt is beautiful. It's one of the best scenes in the movie, and I have it on a shirt. There's not any good Prince of Egypt shirts or just merch in general, so I have to buy stuff on. I think I bought it off Redbubble or something, but whatever, it's fine. So anyway, and then he lets them go, and then they go to the sea, whatever sea it is, the Sea of Reeds or the Red Sea or whatever.
The Red Sea, according to the story.
Pharaoh changes his mind and has a bunch of chariots, and he's just like, Moses, get back here. I need those people. And he's just like, oh, whoops. So he puts his staff on the water, and it parts the sea. Again, really good scene in the movie. And then God basically helps them stall by, creating, a fiery thing so they can all pass.
He creates a pillar of fire.
Yeah. And then after that, they try to chase after him, and they either drown or they are trapped by the water. The text is inconsistent.
They're drowned, according to at least according to the text that I read, and this was like, you have, New King James Version and all that kind of stuff. They were all saying that they were drowned, so it was almost like when all of the Hebrews had passed through is the moment that the sea filled itself back up again, and that's where it washed away all of the Egyptians who had charged into the sea after them. So, yeah.
So, and then...
Meanwhile, I just think about the one scene when that happens in Prince of Egypt, and it's funny because you actually see it in the When You Believe sequence, is you see 2 Egyptian guards actually leave with the Hebrews, and so when they turn around at the end of the sea and they see the whole sea collapse in on the army, you see these 2 Egyptian guards that are like standing there like, you just saw your coworkers get just fucking slaughtered. Anyway.
Yeah.
It's just how I think about that a lot.
Yeah, an interesting... So, 2 interesting facts. Well, a nice touch of the movie is they keep Ramses alive, and he's stranded on a rock, and he's like screaming. It's like, I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you meddling, Moses. Anyway, the second fact is in the When You Believe in the movie version, they have the Mika Mocha put in there, which is the Hebrew version of whatever. It is in Hebrew, so it is in Hebrew, and it's the song that Miriam sings as they cross the Red Sea biblically. So it's not on the streamlined When You Believe version, obviously, but if you watch the movie, so that is a song that you have to not learn, but you hear a lot in the in services, so you kind of know it anyway. I have to know it when I got bat mitzvahed, so it's like great, I guess. But that's a little tidbit where they added that because that's at least according to the Torah, what she sang when they crossed and they celebrated, even though everyone else got slaughtered. It's fine.
It's like,
this is fine.
Never mind the drowned Egyptian army behind you. It's fine. We're good. It's fine.
And that's the general gist of it. The general story. There's other bits where the golden calf and Joshua and whatever, but that's the story of...
Isn't there that whole thing like the earth swallowed up people when they did the golden calf?
Yeah, he was mad.
Isn't there something
God
like that?
was mad. Yeah, so
yeah,
it's just it's silly though, because if they saw the sea part, like they were there, and then they're just
Isn't it kind of funny? Isn't it like when Moses was literally coming down from the mountain with the 10 Commandments when he saw them making a golden calf?
So the movie
insert the monkey Moses.
Down.
No. But I mean, literally, that's what happened.
Where someone makes a really an edit from the Prince of Egypt, where he comes down, the golden calf is there, and he's just like, well, what did you guys what did I just tell you? This is what happens when I leave you alone for 5 minutes.
Yeah, for 5 minutes. Could you not worship false gods for 5 minutes? But yeah, so
someone please
that's
make
funny
that
where they end them. It's
Someone please make that meme. I would enjoy it. Anyway, go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's just funny. That's where they end Prince of Egypt, is when he's coming down with the tablets, and I'm just thinking, right after that, he's gonna come down there and he sees a golden calf. They wisely cut that part off.
Well, they can't have a 3-hour movie, so they had to
Yeah, so if you want the 3-hour version of the Book of Exodus, go watch the one with Charlton Heston as Moses. But if you don't want to sit through 3 hours of film, watch Prince of Egypt, because it also has the established connection of Moses and Ramses being brothers. Because it seems like even though the Charlton Heston version had 3 hours to show them having a relationship, they don't. So anyway.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about Prince of Egypt, because that's the better part of this whole episode. And I was stupid, and I was just like, hey guys, I sometimes I I hold polls on Twitter and or the community tab to see what scripts I want to write, because there's really nothing happening right now. So I'll write a Kim Possible script, or I'll write whatever, and we'll see how it does, and then it will do badly, and then I'll be sad, and then we'll just do the same thing next week, or the same thing in another 2 weeks. But I put a poll whether people wanted Prince of Egypt or the Worst Kim Possible episode, or one of the other ones, I think a Draken video. And Prince of Egypt won. And I was just like, I will cover Prince of Egypt, but I am we are working on a very, very big Lion King video, and I do not have the emotional energy to do Prince of Egypt on top of that. So we're going to just...
We'll get there when we get
there.
We'll
get there when we get there. So, I will cover Prince of Egypt, definitely 100%, but it's, Lion King ended up being, I think, 12 to 14 pages, and those are 14 like regular essay type pages, not like double space bullshit that I usually do.
Oh no.
So it's
I should know. I looked over everything.
Yeah, so this is the first script I have to record in pieces, because it's not like even ethically, or like, I can't sit there and record it, because it would take like 4 to 5 hours to record the whole thing raw. So I'm just recording it in pieces. So anyway, you will see more of that probably in the next month or two. It will be a big heckin', but hopefully it will be like a really good heckin' big. But anyway, and then we're doing the Worst Kim Possible episode for those who want to wait for that one. So I wrote the script, and I'm gonna record it when I feel like it, as I usually do. Anyways, Prince of Egypt. So Prince of Egypt, I feel, is DreamWorks' best movie ever, because, as I talked about in the Problem with DreamWorks video, DreamWorks unlike Disney, they lack a consistent tone as far as what the hell they are doing half the time. So they'll either have super serious movies like Prince of Egypt, or in the middle somewhere like Kung Fu Panda, or like the Snail movie, or the Bee movie, or what the fuck ever, things I won't care about in a year.
The mid-2000s were an interesting time for DreamWorks, for sure.
And now that we have this fucking Spirit movie that no one asked for, which, again, I'll cover, but...
Which is connected to the show, the Netflix show, by the way, for people who don't know and are very confused seeing who this horse is. And they're like, that's not Spirit. I'm like, well, yes, you're right, that isn't Spirit. That's supposed to be his son. Which I guess... the fandom has given him a different name because they're tired of people getting him mixed up with his dad.
That's a good idea.
I think they said his name's basically, because they call him Spirit. They're like, oh, his name's is technically Spirit, is Spirit Junior. I'm like, no, I think they call him like Golden Eagle or something like that in the fandom. I'm like, I'll accept that far more, because at least there's a character separation there, because the designs are already too similar. But it's just like, I know, otherwise you look at the horse that everyone knows is Spirit, if you make him look too different, it doesn't sell. So I get it.
DreamWorks, yeah. You never know what you're gonna
get. You literally could have just had Spirit come back on his own. Spirit and Rain could have been there. I mean, I know they kind of nod to them in the show, at least as far as some clips have shown. I
didn't know Laura knew so much about Spirit, so.
The original Spirit movie is one of my all-time favorite movies, and I'm like, that's why it's like with basically Prince of Egypt and Spirit are like my two. I want to say those are my two top favorite DreamWorks movies, for sure.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll cover the Spirit movie when we get to it. So if a lot of people are talking about it, it's just, again, that's not going to be another, like, a little bit of not a big project, but like a little bit of the project, because I haven't seen Spirit since I was a child, and I remember, like, I like the animation, obviously, but I remember not really caring for it. So we'll see. I just don't want to watch.
I personally just don't want to
watch the new one where they like
movie.
Yeah.
No, don't watch this one. Don't watch the new one if you have not seen the original movie, because first of all, you'll appreciate the first movie a whole lot more as an adult. I feel like, because it is so much more mature than what you even can, like, that's why I say, if anything, it is the most mature horse movie. So if you've seen a bunch of other horse movies, it's usually a racing movie or anything like that, or
Seabiscuit.
taming a horse. This this one is Spirit is about the horse and going back to the wild and preserving that wild spirit
It's
that
like
he has.
Call of
That's
the
why
Wild,
he's
but
known
with
as
a
Spirit.
horse, right?
Kind of more or less, but he's born in the wild. He is born in the wild, and he goes back to the wild. So he is literally an embodiment of the American wilderness spirit. So basically, this was at a time, and it takes place in a storyline at a time during around, I want to say, the American Civil War, if not post Civil War. Because that's why you have like the American cavalry unit that with the colonel that tries to break him and stuff like that. So, but then he also is friends with Little Creek, who is a Native American, and who lives more with the land and with horses. And even though he tries to, get to ride him and stuff like that, he tries to do it from an angle where he tries to understand the horse versus trying to break him to his, bend him to his will. So that's why it's showing these two different approaches and respecting horses, respecting nature, and that kind of stuff, especially in the time period that it was in. So, yeah, and also the horses don't talk. I mean, the others, like, there's Matt Damon with his monologuing over the movie as like a narrator of sorts, basically the inner voice, head voice for Spirit, but the animals don't ever talk. So that's pretty cool that they let the visuals pretty much explain themselves. So that's another thing I really like about it. So that way it feels more grounded.
I don't remember. Did it do well at the box office when it came out?
I remember it did pretty well. I mean, I remember it doing pretty well. And I think it only got better with time, that more and more people appreciated it, especially when they tried to bring the property back with the show, and more people wanted to go back to the movie because they're like, wait, I don't remember this happening. So they're like, let me go back to the movie and double check. Oh yeah, this is what happened, sad. Right? So yeah. So it's just that there's a disconnect there, but otherwise the movie still stands there as a lot of people are now just even now seeing it in more recent years, and you're going like, why did I miss this? I'm like, yeah, I know. The early 2000s were a weird time because things were transitioning to 3D. So 2D movies were often getting left in the dust. Treasure Planet, Atlantis. So there was a lot of stuff that was falling to the wayside, and only now, more recent years, where more people are wanting to see more 2D animation, that's where we're getting it. We're getting it from the time now that the movies are like, they're being seen at the right time with the right demographic, with the right mindset. How I say those movies were kind of ahead of their time. So it's like they were almost like making a surplus of 2D animated films that weren't ready for the audience at the time that was demanding 3D. Right. And now that the time has passed almost 20 years for Spirit, which is crazy to think about, that nowadays more people appreciate those stories in the medium. So
yeah, so I'm like, you might complain about the Disney live action movies, but once they start getting to properties that like are kind of then you better appreciate them. Like, swear to God, like, don't make me come down there. But again, COVID has to be over for that. They're gonna run out of their A-list movies like in another couple of years, guys, and then they'll be like, well, I guess we have to do Atlantis. I guess we have to do Oliver and Company or something.
I think the only thing is, I personally don't have an issue with a live action adaptation of Atlantis, but I will always say that the animated one will be better in terms of, because of the art style specifically. It was so different to be used at the time that it was, because it was a much more mature approach to the animation than what they had known before for other Disney movies. It didn't look distinctly Disney. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but like of the two underdogs, I feel like Atlantis will make a better live action movie because it doesn't have like sci-fi elements that's going to be distracting. Like, making John Silver, making all the aliens into like Star Wars looking like aliens is going to be like not fun, versus Atlantis is mostly humanoid and has some pretty effects and stuff like that. So we'll see what happens. On top of that,
Atlantis, the art style for Atlantis was Mike Mignola's art style, which he did the Hellboy series.
Yeah, so it translates easier to live action, like in its DNA. But again, we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so back to Prince of Egypt. So Prince of Egypt. Yeah. So I think it's what I think it's DreamWorks' best movie, like without a doubt. It's great. It's a great song. It's got all the things. My favorite
Yeah.
meme a couple years ago is when the Kings of Egypt or whatever came out. I think I might have mentioned this on another podcast, but like the live action, like a really bad live action movie version came out, I think with Gerald Butler or something. Do you know what I'm talking about? Gods and Kings or something like that?
No, I thought it was just called Exodus or something. Or it was literally about the Exodus, and then they said, "Oh, and here's these rock golems." I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Yeah. So there
I think it's called Exodus.
Okay. Yeah. So no, I think it tried to hide. We might be thinking of two separate movies because I might have missed the Exodus one, but it tried to hide the fact that it was an Exodus movie, and or maybe it was marketed under two different names. Anyway, the point being is when the movie I'm talking about, when it
Gods of Egypt. I'm sorry, you're
there.
talking about
Yeah,
Gods of Egypt, right?
I told you. Anyway,
Okay.
So when that movie came out and it was pirated, my favorite thing ever is like people who were trying to pirate the movie. The pirated versions basically say like this is unavailable. Just go watch Prince of Egypt. It's better.
When even the pirated version of a movie you shouldn't have seen in the first place is already telling you, just go watch Prince of Egypt, please. Just do that. Do yourself a favor.
So, let's see. So Spielberg is the man, essentially, because he's always the man. But the biggest change to the original story is making Pharaoh, who's Ramses, and Moses brothers instead of, like, father and, like, nephew or something. Which makes, I mean, that's the heart of the conflict in the movie, is they love each other, but they're destined to do these different things. Like something you don't realize when you're a little kid, but the whole first act of the movie with Patrick Stewart's character is setting up Ramses to be pressured by his father and the expectations of his father to be a strong pharaoh, and that is why he is not able to agree with Moses when he comes back, because he feels like he'll let his father down by not producing.
I will not be the weak link.
Yeah, and one of, like, the Broadway version of Prince of Egypt, I think generally missed the bar, and I think that most people will agree with that. But one of the details I liked, which I referenced a little bit earlier, is they actually named Pharaoh's son Seti II after Patrick Stewart's character Seti I, because again the implication of that pressure, and to hone in that point even more, Ramses in the Broadway version has a song, I think, called "The Weak Link," where it makes these points much more transparent than they are in the movie. Not that they're not transparent in the movie, but like it hones in on the character structure. So Ramses isn't particularly a mean guy. He just has this enormous pressure to make sure his kingdom is strong, or else it will fail, which it spoiler eventually does, but not because of his fault. Not his fault.
I do love that there's the whole foreshadowing where Moses teases them when he's still thinking he's a prince of Egypt, roll credits, that he when he's with Ramses saying, wow, so it's like, wow, you're so scared of wow, the whole kingdom is gonna fall apart in your hands when you take over. They're like, so scary, like he's taunting him with this fear, and it ends up being a reality, and it's just like tug collar.
Yeah, and there's also things like the shots in that first scene where they have Seti being echoed by the big Sphinx in the right, and I think it's even mirrored when Moses comes back, where Ramses is in that spot, and just the range of emotions where they're Ramses basically makes the point to be harden his heart essentially because Moses does not come back because he wants to make amends with Ramses. He comes back out of obligation. Ramses is hurt by that. So these tangible things that are not really really mentioned or touched on in the original version that much. Like, you know, Moses never there's never this weird. I mean, it's much more implied that Moses is going against his family in Prince of Egypt versus in the text and in the other version, essentially, versus Moses is just there to do a job or whatever. You know, so it's things like that, and has like tons of symbolism. Like, you know, Lauren, do you want to share the thing that you wanted to point out that you pointed out on Twitter?
Oh, yes.
Your allegory thing?
And it was funny because it took me freaking 20 plus years to notice this. But it just tells you how much I love the visual language in this movie because of how it's all in the little details. So there is the sequence through Heaven's Eyes in the middle of the movie. And it's obviously showing Moses becoming acclimated to living with the Midianites in the middle of the desert and kind of stepping into his role as shepherd over the flocks. And actually it's foreshadowed very early in the movie with the song Deliver Us that when the Hebrews are basically imploring God to send a shepherd to shepherd them in the lyrics, and then you have later Moses becoming a shepherd, and it's foreshadowing of even then his role where he is destined to shepherd the people out of Egypt. There is this tan lamb that is born in the middle of the Through Heaven's Eyes sequence, and you see that lamb actually grow up and get older, and he's the one that's hanging out with it in the field as he's getting older, and he's, you know, his hair's growing out and all that stuff. But then when he's watching over the flocks, there's this one sheep that goes astray, and it's the tan sheep that he helped give birth. You know, he helped, you know, basically, yeah, he helped birth in the song sequence, and that's the one that leads. Yeah, I was trying to look up like the proper pronunciation for like what is it to help give birth to assist in birthing. You know, anyway, but it's that same tan sheep that actually, when he goes to go find this little sheep, that's the reason he lands upon the burning bush. So basically, the sheep was there to lead him. It's almost like a little marker of destiny to lead him to the burning bush, to take him to where God was going to tell him, you're going to go back to Egypt and save your people. So I just thought it was interesting. That is something I never really fully noticed until now, that it's that same little sheep, and that's the very sheep that, because it goes missing, it leads him into the very crevice that takes him to the burning bush. So yeah, this is just, I love the visual language in this.
The more you know. So I'll touch upon some just general Passover terms that are not common in the Prince of Egypt, and I guess Lauren can think of some questions to ask, and we can end on that. So so there's the Passover Seder plate, which has basically a bunch of visual metaphors for the story. So we have so my mom always has the Passover Seder plate that I made when I was in preschool or something. It's like disgusting looking. I was in preschool, so I must have been like 4 or 5 or whatever. But I guess I mixed all the colors, and it's just like this gross brown color, and then there's labeled things inside the plate or whatever. Anyway, so you got the can I do this off the top of my head, or I'm gonna have to look it up. So you have the raw egg, or the hard-boiled egg, which is supposed to symbolize new life after birth. I imagine, I think the Easter Bunny thing, the eggs are a similar purpose, because spring and shit.
Yeah.
You got the shank bone, which people usually use a chicken bone for, which is supposed to remind you of the lamb that got slaughtered for the blood of the door, whatever. You got a piece of celery, or that you dip in salt water to remind you of the bitterness of slavery, even though you didn't witness it because you weren't there. So there's that. There's the bitter herb, which most people use horseradish for, and again, bitterness of slavery. And then there's the haroset, which is the thing that is the yummiest, which is a mix of um, nuts. I forgot what kind of nuts. I usually don't like nuts, but I'll make an exception with haroset. So it's I think chestnut nuts or something like that. So apples, apples crushed, and a little bit of Manischewitz, which is a Jewish themed wine with a lot of sugar in it. Uh, it's kind of hit or miss. You have to grow up with it. And then matzah, which is matzah man, which is the unleavened bread that you're only supposed to eat during Passover, which I do not follow. But essentially, you eat the I think there's a Hallel sandwich, which is you take the two pieces of matzah, you put the haroset and the other thing on top of it, and then you eat it, and then it's supposed to be bittersweet. So that's just like a little like tidbit.
Interesting.
So we do that. We have a special prayer book called the Haggadah, which we read from, which basically goes over the story again and does specific prayers that you usually do during Shabbat anyway. Shabbat is the weekly resting night that takes place on Friday nights on sundown, and it lasts till Saturday nights till sundown. And more religious Jews, called Orthodox or even conservative, so there's the 3 different levels. So Reform is the most chillest. Conservatives are in the middle, and then the Orthodox are the most. They take the Torah most literally, and they're the ones you probably see with that wear the yarmulkes all the time, little hats, and they have the curly locks and stuff. Anyway, thank God I didn't grow up in a more like religious household. I would have cried a lot. Anyway, so more religious Jews don't. This is Passover. I guess this is a segue. So for Shabbat, we usually don't celebrate Shabbat, but for more religious Jews, you do. And then you're supposed to take a break. Supposed to take a rest in between on Shabbat. So you're supposed. Some people turn off the power and they read and they light candles, and you don't connect with anyone, and you just kind of shut down. Like the whole thing of like God made the world in 6 days and he rested on the 7th day. So that's what it's supposed to represent.
So that's where the Sabbath comes from.
Yes.
Sabbath is Shabbat.
Yeah. Remember the Sabbath and keep it holy is one of the 10 commandments, which,
Yep.
Christians do Sunday. Anyway, and then, so basically it's a repeat of that. So the general prayers for Shabbat are lighting of the candles, the lighting of the drinking of the wine, and then the blessing of the food, essentially. So we do Passover themed versions of that, which is basically the same thing, but it ends like with a little bit of a different word. And then, let's see, what else? And then we find the Afikomen, which is basically, we still do it, I don't know, it's for kids, essentially, but you find a little piece, so usually my dad or something, takes a piece of my matzah, hides in the house, and then you have to find it. And usually when we were kids, it was like, get $1, but we were all, older at this point. So my dad's like, you get $20 if you find it. So, my brother's girlfriend found it, which is fine. So, that's that. And, let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else that was referenced in the Saturday Night Live skit. The other food that you sometimes eat is gefilte fish, which is like a pickled fish that kind of looks like breaded. It's definitely an acquired taste. You probably won't like it. I like it now because I'm older, but it's not something I was like wild for when I was a kid. Let's see what else. And then the 4 questions are not. I think it's why we do this. Why is this important? Why do we sit comfortably again, which is something we don't do. So that's 2. I don't remember the other 4. I don't remember the other 2 questions. Anyway, you can look them up if you're curious. But that's also a traditional part. And then you tell the story again, and then you eat because Jews love to eat. So there's always food or an oneg after the services. So, yay! I think that's mostly it. Any questions you have, Lauren, about anything?
I guess one. considering it has to do with the bread,
Uh-huh.
that isn't it like I can't remember. I remember hearing it. I remember somehow hearing it was, isn't it because again, as this is a time of like rebirth and coming in fresh with the fresh and new, uh, isn't it like you have to like clear out all products of wheat and stuff like that in the house as you prepare for that, or does that depend on household?
That's dependent on household. What I think you're talking about is how more religious Jews keep their like it's a kosher thing where they keep their milk away from their beef because one of the big kosher rules is you can't um texturally it's you can't boil a calf in its mother's milk. So more religious Jews
Mm.
have like their own like different like little kitchen segments for the meats and then the milk, even though it's a very small chance that these things are related. Um, I think that's what you're talking about. As far as the matzah is because we didn't have time to make the bread rise when we were running out from Egypt. So we just took it as it is, which is matzah is a big cracker thing that doesn't really have a taste. But
That's like unleavened bread, pretty
yeah, it's
much,
unleavened
right?
bread. It's this big
Yeah.
fucking cracker looking thing. So again, I like
Okay,
it.
so that clarifies.
It's like it's like the size of someone's head, like a piece. So but again, I mean, most people like it. Most people like the texture of it. If you grow up on it, then you'll still. It's like it's not as salty as a saltine cracker. It's hard to describe, but
Is it more flake? Is it more like? Is it more flaky?
yeah, it's kind of flaky.
Mm.
Let's see. I think those are it. Any other questions?
Yeah. No, I think that covers it. I think it's because, again, I grew up in private schools where it was in Christian schools where we basically had Bible class and all that kind of stuff, and grew up in Serbian Orthodox. I was baptized in the Serbian Orthodox Church.
I have no
So
idea
it
what
was
that is.
it's I guess you could say
Sounds
it's like
complicated.
it's Orthodox, but I mean but yeah, it was, but either way we were taught like even in like just in my Bible classes and stuff about about like the where Passover comes from and stuff like that. But I guess I didn't know a lot about like the traditions associated with Passover, so it's good to know all this stuff. And actually it was kind of nice that I was familiar with some of it, and then it was just kind of like filling in the blanks of what I didn't understand yet. So but yeah, I'm glad there was a lot I actually was able to follow.
I mean,
this
well,
time.
the good thing is you like me, you probably know the Prince of Egypt like the back of your hand, so you can just like use that to fill in a lot of the different blanks, and then just like why did they do this thing, or like why was Moses played by Val Kilmer? And I'm like, I don't know. I guess he just likes playing Moses a lot, so
Because yeah, there was another production. There was another Moses production that was on stage. It was like an off-Broadway thing or something like that, where Val Kilmer played Moses and sang as him too. So after Prince of Egypt came out, so there was that.
Just let him be Moses.
Yeah, but yeah, otherwise I think it was also just knowing that Passover came from the angel of death passing over the houses of the Hebrews and skipping their doors because of the lamb's blood, and then going to the Egyptians and killing the firstborns of their families. So that's what I remember is Passover is like the angel passing over, and then so I'm like, okay, it means the same thing, just making sure.
Yeah. There's another one thing that I forgot to talk about. So the last thing is you pour a glass of wine for the ghost or the spirit of Elijah the prophet, which I don't really understand the details of, but essentially you just pour a metaphorical glass and then you open the door and then let him come in. And usually, when the adults will drink the glass, like when no one's looking or whatever, and be like, "Oh, he came, he drunk the glass."
So it's the milk
He
and
was
cookies
here
for
all
Santa,
along.
but
Yeah,
it's milk and
he's the
cookies for Santa.
Passover Santa essentially, but instead of leaving presents, he just drinks free alcohol and leaves.
He drinks and bails, doesn't pay the tab.
What the hell, Elijah? Like, come on.
Oh, I didn't know that one. That's a good one. I didn't know that. I'm glad I learned that too.
So yeah, if you want to try some Passover themed foods, I'd recommend the matzah and the haroset. I don't really like anything else. Plus, I don't really eat a lot in general, which is bad. But and then you can always try matzo ball soup, which is hopefully people have had before, because that's like a Jewish staple thing. Most general diners serve matzo ball soup. It's good.
Yeah,
Have you had matzo ball soup?
Find a local
Lauren?
delicatessen. Huh?
Have you had matzo ball soup before?
I think years ago I did. I haven't had it in a long time. But it's
Okay.
good.
Okay, well, maybe when I come back, we'll make matzo ball soup for something. Whatever.
Yeah.
It's relatively easy to
Because
make.
I love food. I love all food, so
Yeah,
I'm down.
consume all the food. Let's see. And then you can just try Manischewitz if you want to, I guess. It's not the best, but, like, people talk about it, Shrugged.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what kind of alcohol do you like? It's like, what is Manischewitz, Yeah, I guess we can end. So, tune in next week. We'll try to think of something else to do. If you're new to the podcast, which this is a weird episode to be new to the podcast for, I imagine you're just old, being like, oh, there's finally a new podcast out after like 2 weeks or something. The biggest thing right now is supporting the main channel. Views are shit. So we're trying to get back up. Not that that matters, but when you spend a really long time making a half an hour Anastasia video and it only gets like 2,000 views, you want to go in a hole and cry forever. So, which I originally pitched to Jenny, but she didn't see my Facebook message, so I was just like, okay, we'll just move on with that.
To clarify to the masses, Jenny Nicholson.
Yeah.
There you go.
we're kind of friends, not really. We're associates. We knew each other from Horse Days. If you're wondering, if you've seen her BronyCon thing, and she talks about John Delancey being a butt, which he can be sometimes, that's mostly from her experience with dealing with him at the first con ever free, and that made worse by the fact that we talk about this in the Heroes episode, but made worse by the fact that he was very intimidating for the first interview that I did with him, and I cried, and I came in the green room, the community guest green room, with all my makeup all fucked up, and she's just like, "Wow, man, you made that whole thing for John Delancey, and he's like being an asshole to you. What the hell, John Delancey? But he's old. What are you gonna do?" I mean, he's apologized in his own John Delancey way. He's nice to me. So thanks for making sure I'm not banned at cons because conventions are stupid, John Delancey. Anyway, but yeah.
Anyway, we got plenty of episodes if you haven't caught them yet, or again, like, yeah, kind of weird if this is your first episode, but hey, I guess some people got to start somewhere. I guess some people want to find a podcast episode talking about Passover, then they came to the right place to talk about it, and then they're like, oh, look, there's all these other episodes. So I mean, I can't exactly say it's entirely weird. Everybody's got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
But we as you noticed, we talked about Prince of Egypt, so we talk animation. And if you looked at our name, we're Animation Kimmunication. So we talk a lot about animation, entertainment, all that good stuff.
Sometimes even about Kim Possible, because it's in the name. Yay.
Wow. Isn't that a shocker?
Well, nothing. I mean, the show's been on off like forever. So
yeah, but your name is immortalized as I Love Kim Possible a lot,
yeah,
so.
I mean, I'm low-key thinking that Disney will do something with it eventually, but after the live action movie didn't do so hotly, but whatever, no one's surprised that they're gonna wait a couple of years before they try anything again with it. So
yeah,
we'll see what happens. I'll probably make a joke later in the videos where I'm like, the only thing I would like, this is totally off topic, but I'll just put it in here. I would like, if they do a new season, for Draken to go to college with Kim and Ron, because I think that would be hilarious, and it would be a way to keep him in the show without him having to be evil, because he mostly got reformed at the end of the last episode, and it'd be weird for him to get a medal and be like, fuck that medal, I'm gonna be evil, because Draken's whole thing is about proving himself, and he did it already, so his character arc is complete. Anyway, and then I want Draken and Chico to kiss, like, at least once. Like that's... I'm not asking for a lot, Disney, but, like, you know, it's canon, like, they need to kiss. Like, that's all I want. Okay, what were you talking about, Lauren?
Anyway, happy Passover to everybody who celebrates. To all the Drac and Shigo shippers celebrating Passover, we wish you a very happy
Merry
holiday.
Draco Passover, or whatever the fuck it's called. I don't know.
And to all those who are also celebrating Easter this coming weekend, I know this episode is probably going to come out after Easter, but anyway, hope you all had a nice Easter whenever this episode comes out. So, because yeah, it'll be Good Friday tomorrow as of recording this.
I've never been. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add, I've never been to an egg hunt before. Like, I just know Easter is a thing that Jesus came back from the zombie Jesus day. That's it. So
we'll make sure we get in an egg hunt for you at some point. So
okay, we'll do.
I mean, it's literally just hiding a bunch of plastic eggs and different painted eggs all over
that sounds
a location.
fun. Like
yeah,
you know.
And so I think the fun thing is with sometimes with the, like, you could paint the eggs yourselves and you can go, and then somebody hides them, and then you have other people go and try and find your colored eggs, or you can get like prizes and other little like plastic eggs, you know, the little
How do you put the candy into the eggs that you make yourself?
No.
It's real eggs?
Only if they're the plastic. Yeah, no. If you do the plastic eggs, you can put candy in those. The real eggs, you can't do that. So I mean, it'd be cool if you did.
You find real eggs, and then what do you do with them?
Often they're hard boiled, and sometimes you can eat them. So
just eat the candy.
But,
that sounds gross.
It's just more often people will do the plastic eggs, especially if you have a bunch of little kids going and looking for the eggs. They're often just going to do the plastic eggs.
Then you
can
you have to worry about
eggs. You can stick stickers and or paint on them or whatnot. You can still do that to those eggs. But yeah, the other ways, you get candy inside them, and you get a little basket you can take with you. And
do they have like? Do you get like prize if you win the most eggs, or you just get to keep the candy?
It depends. It depends on where you do your egg hunt. Sometimes there are communal places that do giant egg hunts, so they will make a competition out of it. I know, like, the White House does the Easter egg roll every year, so they do it on the White House lawn. I don't know. I guess they just have mostly just kids go and find as many eggs as they possibly can. They hide them all over the lawn. But I guess it depends. Depends on where you are and who's holding the event. But yeah, sometimes it's just, you know, hiding eggs around the house, or it's hiding eggs in a park, that kind of thing. So, because there are actually huge, well, back when you could do communal stuff, there were giant communal Easter egg hunts.
We'll be done soon, Lauren. Just the adults got to get a vaccine, and then we're done. So.
Yeah, and then it's like, because even so, there are some other events where they do whole Easter celebrations, so you can meet the Easter Bunny and that kind of stuff. Kind of like, you know, meeting Santa, but
why
meet a bunny.
Why does the Easter Bunny leave the eggs if he's a bunny? Like, the bunnies don't lay eggs.
No, it's just literally just the bunny leaving gifts. That's all it is, and so it's like leaving a nice. This is not how
I'm still confused, but okay.
I want to say it's like, at least how I've seen it, is that he's, again, the symbol of spring and, you know, renewal. So it's not too far off from Passover, where it's a sign of renewal and rebirth.
Why don't they have like carrots then, or like bunny theme things that you put the candy in, like?
I guess it's safer to use eggs, and also it's more symbolic to use eggs. And I guess if it's really that tightly linked to Passover, technically speaking, if you guys use eggs, I guess we took eggs from that.
Okay.
And so I think it's just there's a number of shared features between Easter and Passover in that respect, because of the kind of the bleeding in of traditions from Passover into Easter. Yeah, especially with like things like eggs, but it's also just like, it's spring, so it's a spring celebration. So and then obviously when Jesus rises from the grave, it's another sign of renewal, rebirth, you know, new hope coming. So it's pretty much that.
Jesus got his skin rejuvenated or whatever. Okay, my last fun Passover fact, because I remembered one, is I'm not going to tell you my last name. People on the podcast, don't look it up, please. It's creepy. But I am, my lineage is from the Levi tribe. There's 12 tribes of Israel that leave when Moses leaves and stuff like that. So my other fun fact is the Levi's are thought to be direct descendants of Aaron. So I think that's cool. So that's my other fun fact.
So which is cool because it's the communicator line. So that's pretty cool that in a way you are a leader line.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I want to move things in general. Like once, hopefully, like with this Lion King project and some other stuff, we'll get back on track, and I can be animation leader person avatar thing. But now people are just like still in phases of like, oh yeah, I remember she existed or whatever. COVID has not helped anything at all. So I appreciate if you're still watching the main channel, and hopefully we'll get some more people and things and stuff later. So just tell your friends, I guess, and subscribe and put the notifications on and stuff.
And then maybe one more reminder for folks about when we release episodes of the
yeah,
podcast.
right. So generally we release episodes Wednesdays 6 a.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. on YouTube with the loop. Sometimes we take breaks. Obviously, I think we took like a 2-week break with this or something like that. But
and that was mostly because of circumstances out of our control. So that was just like we try to fit in the podcast when we can, folks. So and we try to be as consistent as possible. But life, what you gonna do?
It's fun being an adult. I hate it. So if you're new, there's plenty of old ones to catch up on. If you want to get to know your friendly neighborhood podcast host or whatever, Bob, and or I tell people, like, learn that I'm not a bad person, because when you spend like an hour and a half, you realize, oh, she's like not this egotistical monster that I heard from like 4chan or what the fuck ever. So it's fun. But if you're commuting or you're still doing that, or you're going back to your commute after COVID slowly ends, then that's why we upload the SoundCloud version, or Spotify or iTunes, wherever. That's why we upload it earlier, so you can listen to it on your commute to work if you're doing that. But if you don't care,
or if you listen to it when you work out or anything like that, basically any place that you can't have a laptop accessible.
Oh my god, people listening to me while I work out, like I'm the worst with exercise. So like you have to trick me to exercise. They'll be like, well, exercise, Rachel, but we'll go to Disneyland. I'm like, that is worthy of exercise. But normally I just don't eat a lot, and that's how I maintain my weight. Healthy Katie. Anyway, so I guess see you guys next week. We should have an episode next week, as normal, and then if we have another hiatus, we should be able to tell the Twitter. So keep an eye on the Twitter if that is a thing that you care about. So at the KP Podcast on Twitter.
So have a good Passover, have a happy Easter, and we will see you all next time.
Eat all the candy
have a good night, everybody.
Eat all the candy that I can't eat because I don't know what an egg hunt is.
Or you just go to your local CVS and pick up some candy eggs.
Or some Peeps.
They have Whopper eggs and Peeps and chocolate bunnies. Go and enjoy some candy.
Yeah. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Good
night,
my house. Everybody.
Thank you so much for listening to Animation Kimmunication on YouTube, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider. We are really hoping this show makes a difference in how people view animation and media, as well as giving and providing advice for people all over the world who like or want to join the animation or media industry. If you liked what you heard, please remember to subscribe and rate those 5 stars, as well as tell your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our main YouTube channel, I Love Kim Possible a Lot, and turn those notifications on. My name is Scribbler, and you have been listening to Animation Kimmunication.